If you're in the market for a new or pre-owned vehicle, try Pop Chevrolet. Pop Chevrolet will get you the best price guaranteed. Visit popchevy.com. That's P-O-P-S Chevy.com. This episode is brought to you by Paintsville Tourism. Paintsville is located in eastern Kentucky in the heart of the US 23 Country Music Highway. Visit paintsvilletourism.com. That's paintsvilletourism.com. Come see why Paintsville is eastern Kentucky's city of note. This episode is brought to you by Wild Bill's Fireworks. At Wild Bill's, they will help you start and maintain a successful fireworks business. Whether you're starting a retail store, a seasonal tent, or a part-time venture, Wild Bill's is your one-stop wholesale fireworks supplier. Their team can help you pick inventory. They offer business training, ongoing support to make sure you stay profitable no matter the size of your business. Call or text for more information. Just ask for Bill at 606-367-5569. That's 606-367-5569. Or visit wildbillsfireworks.com and make sure you ask about their financing plan. Welcome back to the podcast. We hope you're enjoying our series. In today's episode, we sat down with Jason Morris. Jason was a music publisher in Nashville, and he was previously on the first 4 episodes of the podcast. Let's sit down with Jason now. This is Behind the Shed.
I'll never forget Jeff Mosley and Mark McGuinn drove over to my house. This is way before you met him, actually. And I was living over on Warfield in Green Hills, and Jeff shows up my door one night about midnight. You know, he's having a good time, and Mark's having a good time. He's with Mark McGuinn, and he comes in. We sat on my floor in my living room, and Jeff goes, "Play him the songs, play him the songs." And I was like, he played me Rudy. He played me. So many. Just one after another. So
Heaven Must Be Missing You.
Yeah, Heaven Must Be Missing You.
God, that's a good one.
That's what he opened with, actually. And we sat there for probably 2 hours.
Wow.
And drank beer, and he played so many just unbelievable hits. Jeff Mosley was good at that. He could find talent.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Jeff was good at that.
You know what's crazy about that? I never even heard of Mark McGuinn. I knew everybody in town. I never even heard of him.
Well, I don't think anybody did, to be honest with you.
I didn't know him before that.
But he was sitting in my living room one night.
But when I heard him,
you knew.
Well, I knew I was going to sign him.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
But isn't that the way you've always done it?
Yeah,
I knew I was going to do it.
And so Nancy Tunick was. She probably would remember this too. She was head of promotion, and we had a song out on her husband and another guy. They were called Hometown News.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
And it was in the charts.
Mm-hmm. Minivan.
Yeah. Minivan. That's it. Got it. You get the
minivan.
You get the Thompson water seal and the indoor trampoline. Yeah, it was so good. But anyway, I said I played her Mrs. Stephen Rudy and Heaven Must Be Missing You. I said, Nancy, I've got you a way out of here. Put this out first and this out second. Well, I didn't know we were going to run out of money, you know, because I told what's that guy's? Shit.
Which guy?
David Lowe. Remember David Lowe?
Kind of.
I met Ed through David.
Oh, Ed was your financial partner in the way.
Ed Arnold.
Yeah.
I think I told you about this, Wade. But anyway, so he said he had X number of dollars.
You have had a really amazing way of finding money. I mean, you made money. You found money to make money.
Yeah.
And it's always been very interesting to me.
Well, the guy that saved us was Donnie Canada.
That's Donnie Canada, yeah. somebody I never met. You did.
Donnie, and it was
Russ.
so cool the way it all happened.
How did that
He
happen?
brought up,
It's a great
remember
story.
the guy that died, Bruce Ritz?
Just recently, our buddy over there. That's
Donnie
how we all know each other.
brought me a guy named Marlow Tackett. First of all, isn't that a great name? Marlow Tackett.
Yeah.
Before he got to you, see, Bruce worked. Marlow had a club in Eastern Kentucky, and Bruce worked at that club and was trying to manage Marlow. And Donnie Canada, that was his hangout. Mm-hmm. And Donnie said, "How can I get in the music business?" And Bruce said, "We need to go to Nashville and cut a record." And he said, "How do we do that?" And he's like, "Just jump in the car and let's go." So they drive to Harold's office, and then that's
But he knew about Harold from the Alabama records, which
Yeah.
are starting to happen. Yeah.
yeah.
So was it one of those? How do you make a small fortune in the music business? Start with a large one.
So once they got to Harold's place,
Yeah.
Harold could take off with the story. But it's interesting that these two guys talking in a bar.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
A couple
Well,
gazillion
Yeah.
dollars later.
So how did that happen? Tell it.
Well,
Yeah.
They brought Marlow Tackett, and so they had a tape of some stuff, and nothing I liked, but I did like his singing, and so then I went to Kentucky, went to Marlow's club and saw him do the whole thing and all at the same time and pull a machine gun on David Allen Coe.
Oh my God.
What?
Yeah.
Tell that story.
Wait a minute. He pulled a machine gun on David Allen Coe?
Yeah. Backed him right out of the club, too.
I can't believe David didn't pull a machine gun
Well,
out and back him back.
that's what I would have thought.
That's the way that would have gone.
Yeah. But anyway. Well, Marlow was kind of a crazy guy, too. Yeah. Well, David was supposed to do a show at the club. Do you know about this?
Mm-hmm. I've heard Bruce talk about it.
Yeah. And this was about that time. And he wanted to set up out on there's the dance floor and all these seats, and then about where that wall is the stage. But David Allen Coe said, I want to set up out here. That's not big enough for my band, kind of thing. And Marlow says, "No, you can't do that." So that's where people dance. You got to play off the stage. The stage is where you play. Kind of. He said, "No, I'm not getting on that damn stage. I'm going to play right here, or I'm not going to play." It got hot real fast,
Real quick.
and both of them being the hillbillies they were, were. Marlow's
Good
gone
English.
now. Yeah,
They were.
yeah. 2 S's.
You didn't get your degree from that university.
So Marlow said, "Well, you're not going to play on the dance floor, so load up your shit and get out of here." And so David Allen Coe said, "I'll go when I get goddamn ready to go." He could tell it was
Oh man.
It got ugly.
it was all coming apart.
Yeah.
And Marlow went back in his office or whatever. Yeah, he had a little office and all kind of rooms back there, and came out with one that looked like, I thought, shit, this is Elliot Ness, one of the damn little machine gun. And
David left.
he left.
Wow.
I think I wouldn't stare down. a
And
machine
called
gun.
left and called the sheriff. And so the sheriff then called Marlow, and he went through the whole thing, and the sheriff went through his bit, and he said, "Well, I'm sure he'll be calling me, and so he did. and he told the sheriff what had happened, and he said, "You mean a Tackett pulled a gun on you and didn't shoot you?"
You're not dead yet? Wow.
He said, "Man, you're lucky. I'd just get in my car and go back home."
Call it quits.
That's funny.
That's what he did.
Wow.
That's
so
funny.
how does that connect with Donnie Canada?
Yeah, tell it how the
Well,
whole thing started.
He was underwriting Marlow,
Oh, okay.
and he had bought him a new bus, like then a $200,000 bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had bought him a big semi to haul everything in.
This is before you ever met him?
No, about the time I met him.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah.
The more we did, the more Donnie did. You know,
Right.
and
So he was matching you dollar for dollar.
and so I cut a pretty good record on Marlow, and I took it over to Joe Galani, and he said, "I like this guy. I want to sign him." You know, so it was just that quick.
I wish it was that easy these days.
And what was that song?
It was,
I cut
it was a phone
6, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9.
That's
That's
my number.
and he sang the dog shit out of it, man. I mean, he could do certain things,
Yeah.
and it was good. And did what was his name? 4 in the morning. Who wrote that?
Vern Gosden.
Vern.
I don't know who wrote it, but I think Vern sang it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair and Young.
Fair and
Fair and
Young.
Young,
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Out of the whole album, there was 3 or 4 things that were really good, you know. Enough that it was a good album.
Right.
And so Joe Galani, man, he just jumped all over it. We released the first single, and it debuted in the 40s, brand new guy.
Wow.
So we knew then that we were on to something, and we went on a promotion tour to promote the records, and got to Texas, and Marlow, being the illustrious club owner that he was, got on stage literally behind chicken wire. It was one of those places.
Behind chicken wire. Right.
It was one of those places,
Was it in Texas?
and made the wrong move on some guy's wife. And so after the show, they followed Bruce, and I think he might have gone to Marlow's place.
Hotel room.
Yeah. And so everybody
they
knows
followed
Bruce.
him, and then when it got tough, Marlow went into the men's bathroom, and they killed Bruce.
Yeah.
Oh, Bruce was in the hospital for weeks.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Lost hearing in one
Lost
ear.
hearing, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Donnie
And
Keys.
then
Yeah.
immediately after that, Marlow came back. Boy, Galani was so pissed,
I don't blame him.
Yeah.
and he was pissed at me and everybody else. God damn, you can't keep him in line. I said, no, I can't.
I really can't.
So then the next weekend, he got shot in the parking lot of his club by another jealous husband. Didn't kill him, but he shot him.
Was this in Texas also?
No, back in Pikeville.
Oh, in Pikeville. Yeah.
God, I didn't know that.
The other thing was in
He got
Texas.
shot in the parking lot
Yeah, it was of his club.
Yeah.
of his own club.
Yeah. So, and I don't know over who or what. know that it was not a good situation, you know.
Wow.
And then Joe said, "Fuck it." that was the
I'm
end.
out.
Yeah, I guess I'm off the label.
Yeah.
And Marlow he never even realized the importance of
Wow.
what had just happened.
What went down, huh?
Wow.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Behind the Shed. Today's sponsors are PopChevy.com, Paintsville Tourism, Wild Bill Fireworks, and the Kent Rose Foundation.
But Donnie at this point, he's just managing Marlow, and he's paid you to make a record on him. You guys aren't partners yet, or anything?
No. But I guess Donnie kind of took a liking to me or something.
Yeah.
And we're doing somebody else. We were cutting some sides on somebody else, and we got into a conversation, and like we are now.
Mm-hmm.
What are you planning on doing now? You know, Donnie,
Mm-hmm.
that we ain't got Marlow. You know, shit.
Cut him free.
I said, Donnie, the only thing I'm trying to do is build me a studio where I can make serious records, you know, and just like that. He said, well, what do you need for that? And I said, well, I need a lot of money.
Is that easy, huh?
What a coincidence.
I got a lot of
what
money.
You gonna, yeah, I said, what are you going to do? I said, well, first thing I'd do, I'd buy me a Trident 2SM console.
Had that board.
And I had a 16-track board and a 40-track machine. So I was way off. You know what I needed?
Paper towel.
I need a studio. I need some equipment.
Yeah, place to work.
And he said, well, how much are you talking about in dollars? And thank you, man. I'm just running like crazy.
I know.
Yeah, it's that kind of day.
What is that?
Just
It's
junk
called-
in the air from the rain.
It's called
mold.
Nashville in the winter.
Yeah.
So I need about $2 million.
What year was this?
This is about 75 or 6.
So it's like $8 million.
Probably a little later, wasn't it?
No, it was in the 80s. It had to be in the 80s, wasn't it?
No, they built.
It was in the late 70s.
Yeah.
Oh,
It could have been 80. It could have been as late as 80,
No,
right? You sure?
no,
Okay.
no.
All right. I wasn't there.
No, we started
78, 79.
the new mill in the 80s.
Yeah.
oh yeah. Okay.
Finished it in 82,
Right.
August of 82.
Right, so it had to be 79 or so then. You're right.
Yeah.
It had to be like 79, 78.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right.
Well,
okay.
we had to try it in the old mill.
Yeah.
Well, about that time, yeah, it
Where
was
was the
late
old
because we had bought it. Sheb Woolley and I had bought it
Sheb.
out of bankruptcy, or bought it because it was,
Green, purple,
whatever
keep leaders.
that is. It was a mess.
Yeah.
We'd sold it. Well, we didn't sell it. We had to get out.
Yeah.
And so then the guy that owned the wax museum there, Daniel
Oh, yeah.
She is
Yeah. Over there,
HSU. Daniel
across from
Shee.
the Hall of Fame.
What?
Across from the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the
Hound dog, hot dogs were on the
Yeah,
corner.
right there, right
Hound
there.
dog, hot dog.
by
Loretta
Shoney's,
Lynn
right
had
by
a place.
Shoney's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be. And then the 16th Avenue Club was there. Mm-hmm. The people that ran the ACM owned it.
So anyway, so Donnie says, what are you
Here's
gonna
$2 million.
do? And you're going to build a studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the The $2 million was for the old mill?
Well, it was to buy equipment for the new mill.
Oh,
I told him, I said, I want to put a new place. I know where I want to put it, but I got to buy 2 old houses, and everything. And I told him the whole story. I said it might be $3 million. Could be $4 million. I don't know. But that's really what I want to do. I mean, you asked me that's what I. And so then he started talking about, would you want a partner, kind of thing. And I said, yeah, I'm not against having a partner, but I don't need a partner as much as I need money.
Yeah. I don't really need a partner. I need the money.
That was the first time he had said that, well, I've got the money, and then I really got to talking seriously to him and found out,
Did y'all know
It
each
was
other
mining-
much before then?
What?
I mean, how long did y'all know each other before?
Maybe a month or two.
How do you do that, Harold?
I don't
How
know.
do you do
Well,
that?
I didn't do it.
You
It-
know somebody
it-
for a month and you say, I need $4 million.
God does
There you go.
that. Yeah.
I mean,
Our supreme leader does that.
Yeah.
that does not happen to everybody on the planet.
No.
No,
It happens to you.
but it happens to a lot of people, though.
I know.
So okay.
So he said, well, where do you want to, I said, well, let's go. And he was, I think he was in his little SL 500. Because I said, I said, I've got to get situated where I can make enough money to buy one of these cars.
Is that what you wanted?
Yeah.
And you did too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He walked in one morning.
That was part of the budget.
Walked in one morning and said, your car's up at Madison Smith. Was that the old dealer over there?
Yeah.
Wow. I said, what? He said, your car is over there.
Oh, got you a car.
I went over there, and it was.
Wow.
Got the key, and
It actually worked. You know what? That's the first time I've heard the actual story. I've heard that story 100 different ways. I don't know why I never asked you that.
He just called you up and said, "Here, go get your
That's
car."
what happened, and so
Wow.
now, so I showed him. I said, Donnie,
I love you.
we've got to sell, one or two of these houses. Maybe we can sell one of them, or get somebody to tear it down, and it'll take about $10,000 to get it torn down and hauled away, and that's about what it took back then. And but it didn't. Dale Morris, I gave it to Dale Morris, and he moved it free.
The house?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's where Dale's office is.
Oh, is that?
Oh,
yeah.
wow. I didn't know that.
That old house, that was on, that was where the mill is.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't remember that. Wow.
And so then
Where was the old mill? Because I didn't get here till 80.
across from the Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
You know where that little country, whatever this building
Yep.
still is? It's right next to there.
Okay, that's right.
Right by there.
Yeah, that was, what's his name? His wife's name, Joy Ford.
I remember her name.
Herman.
I never knew him.
Yeah. He was a character.
Wow.
He had a lot of money. Herman did.
He had a lot of money too.
Yeah. But anyway, so Donnie says, well, I have a friend up in North Carolina that builds. Well, I went through the whole thing. I want a log building. I want all these timbers when you walk in. And I want a studio over here. And I want, office and all. The second room wasn't there. It was not part of the big plan.
I didn't know that.
Remember that we built that for Ed C.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't do. Yeah. The studio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was in the middle of that. I know that.
Yeah. But so he brought in a guy his name was thought I'd never forget him.
Oh, what's his name?
Oh, what's his
Hanson
name?
was one of them.
Yeah.
He did a lot of the work. Bill Kirkes, Kirkes.
Wow.
Bill Kirkes from right out of Charlotte, North Carolina.
This is the log company, the log cabin company.
Yeah.
He remembers how to spell it because
He came
wrote a lot
in
of
and
checks.
I told him what I wanted to do, so he did the plans and all of that stuff. And Donnie said, well, I'll bring some of my guys down here and we'll get these walls up in a hurry. I said, well, I want it designed by an acoustical engineer. I want it to sound like you would think a wooden structure, you know. I mean, it should be the ultimate. Yeah. And so that's when I met John, what was his name? The acoustical engineer that came in.
I know this, and I can't remember.
I know exactly
I'm
what
sure
you're talking
will.
about. He
He
bounced
was a friend of Cotton's.
Yeah, I can't think of who it is right now.
He did a lot of rooms in Nashville.
Yeah.
He was a big deal for a while there.
Yeah, he was.
He did it. He did.
And so was Steve Durr.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Steve was a good engineer, technical guy. But anyway, this guy, it sounded so good. And so said, well, got this many logs. And then this is the acoustical guy. When you
tuned
want
the
the
room.
perfect scenario. So the logs are one wall. And then there's a freestanding wall of 6 inches or so from that wall, and then another 12 inches or so from the freestanding wall are the inside walls of the main studio. So it's supposed to sound like it sounds, which is as good as you can get it. you
Right.
know? Everything is technically
There's no corners. There were no corners that weren't
no right angles.
right. No right angles. That's what I'm trying to say.
And it's as near perfect as you can get it.
It was tuned.
Yeah.
It was a good tuned room.
And there's under the floor and the
Oh, do you have floating floors?
main studio, there's 950 shock absorbers.
Yeah.
That floor is
Yeah.
sitting on.
What was that guy's name?
And there's X number of pounds of sand in the drum floor. I mean, everything.
As good as it
I
could
mean, the mill was an incredible place.
Yeah.
Still is. Even though they don't record there anymore.
Yeah.
But they still teach people about
What's
songs
Bart
and
doing
music.
with that place now?
Do what?
Bart?
It's like a
It's
kind of
NSAI.
like a think tank in that they have classes and they write and do all of this stuff. And since it became property of the songwriters, they have signed right at 160 people that they taught there how to do stuff to major publishing contracts.
Right. Yeah.
They do good work over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do.
Oh,
Bart's a great guy.
it's incredible. It's incredible what they do.
So you're proud of that. You're proud of handing that off. to
Yeah,
them. That's
yeah,
good. Yeah.
So
Yep.
when you were building it, did Donnie bring down coal miners?
Yeah, he brought about 40 people down in trucks and shit. They put them walls up, outside walls.
Did they
and-
blow the hole for the
2 or
basement and
3
everything
days.
too? Didn't they do all that stuff? Blow the
Yeah.
hole and all that
Yeah.
stuff?
There's a basement?
Yeah.
In the mill?
I didn't know that. I've
It's
never been
huge down there.
Huh?
Oh, it's huge.
Oh, underneath.
I've never been down
Oh, yeah.
to the basement.
Yeah, it's all.
I never got past the studio.
It's on solid rock. We had to blast rock out
Yeah.
of.
I went to Chuck's office and I went to the studio.
I
That was
remember
about
that.
it.
Shit, there was I think
Oh,
8 offices down there.
Are
plus
you
a whole-
kidding me?
And then past that, there was a whole section on the other end, and it was
Yeah.
wide open. We had the plates in, and we had the vault in there for all the tape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Never went down there. I was always upstairs.
Yep.
had office space, had writers' rooms, had a.
Yep.
How did I miss
had
all that?
You could cook. Had a
Full kitchen.
breakfast kitchen.
Ping pong table.
In fact, we cooked breakfast there on Saturdays. was
Yep.
it?
Yep.
For a long
Yep.
time.
Really?
Yeah, and for a long time, we had Joe and Jim had a space downstairs for a while, and we put Bud Logan down there for a while.
That's right.
Had a bunch of writers' rooms down there.
I had no idea.
Then Glenn had an office there,
and
and
that's
Marty Gamley.
Glenn Campbell Music was down
Glenn
there.
Campbell
forever.
was
Yeah,
down
that's
there?
what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, you know the little side entrance outside?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Here's you
That's-
some
I think-
trivia.
yeah.
That's where Alan
Oh,
Jackson
that door that
started.
goes off the side.
Yeah.
Was in the basement of the
Never,
mill.
ever went
Did you
down
know
there.
that? Alan Jackson was there every day for
Yep.
2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
That's where I met Jim Weatherly down there, down the basement.
Oh, Jackson, he came from Glenn Campbell. He came
Yeah.
from,
Yep.
Yeah.
that was
So-
a Carl Jackson thing, actually.
Carl's a great. He's a great musician.
Yeah.
I
and
saw
writer.
him play just the other day. He
I
played at
recorded 2 or
Melville.
3 of his songs on Glenn's album.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of his albums.
Yeah. That basement was happening, man. We
I had no idea.
We had a #1 party down there in the basement for KT.
That's right.
On Do You. I think it was Do You, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I've got a picture of us all down
It
there.
was Do
yeah.
You.
Yeah. It was Do You.
I did not know.
Yeah, it was big enough for that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
You did blast some rock out of there.
Well, oh yeah, a lot of money because I remember it was $1,500 a shot or a blast. Every time he felt a vibration, it was $1,500.
you felt that, didn't you?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, as an aside, when we put the Focusrite console in A, all the
Yeah.
power supplies that took up a bunch of space for that console
Right.
took up one whole office down there. They had to run the cables under and put all the power supplies down there for the damn Focusrite. Yeah.
I'm going to
But
go
there was a
over there
tape
after
vault
this
down
and
there.
Go
There were
check it out.
2 or 3 chambers or echo plates down there. 3, wasn't it? Then we had 3 plates down there or 2.
We had 2.
I thought for us, for some reason, I thought
We
there was
had
3.
what was the original?
The EMT, and then you had the other one. That's
Lawson.
right. Lawson. Yeah.
Gene Lawson.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, we're down there. And those things were 8 feet
And
long.
then eventually we had the EMT 250s.
Yeah, but they were in the control rooms.
We had 2 of those.
I guess I drove by there so many times and I went in there so many times. I never thought about what that side door was below. I just never.
Well, don't feel bad because I don't know if you remember.
It's a great hideout.
When you not knowing stuff, when you walk in the lobby, if you remember, if you look up
Yeah.
where Harold's office, there was like glass there, but
Yep.
you couldn't see through it or anything. I never ever thought about it. So years later, Harold was over at Mercury Records,
Yeah.
and we had a thing come up about a song called "Why Lady Why" that was on the first Alabama album, and the guy that had co-written that with Teddy had originally been in the band.
Yeah.
And Harold had signed the publishing way back on that song when he was cutting that record and everything. Well, for some reason, all that paperwork.
I bought the publisher.
You bought it, okay,
from
yeah.
the guy owned LSI.
I don't remember the whole story. Yeah, okay, you remember better than I do. But anyway, and he hadn't gotten paid some royalties or something, so we had to go back and track it down. We couldn't find the agreement anywhere. So after I looked for like a month, and I'd gone back and forth with Maypop, and there was a whole story with the Maypop thing, Kevin, Harold said, look up there in my office. And I said, where? He said, well, look in that room back behind my desk. I said, there's a room behind your desk. I'd been there for 6 or
How
7
long have you
years.
worked there?
Remember that? And I said, I thought that was just a little closet. He goes, no, it is, but
That's
it's
my
bigger than
office.
that. Open that door up. You can see out that glass and see down the lobby and everything. I'm going, wow, this is really cool. I didn't know this was here. All that time, all that time, I didn't know that was there.
Yeah.
It was like a secret
You worked there for
compartment.
how long and you didn't know?
I'd been there 5 or 6 years probably
Really?
at that time, yeah.
Okay, I don't feel so bad about
And I
the
called him
basement.
back and I said, man, it's a cool space. I can't believe I didn't know this was here this whole time. It was crazy. And you know what? And we found it. There were a bunch of boxes in there and you had the agreement in that box.
Yeah.
We
Right.
got it all worked out and done. But I looked for a month. We couldn't find anything anywhere.
I bought 2
Wow.
of his songs, 2 or 3 of them. He was writer on Why Lady Why,
Yeah, good one. That was a good one.
and
Oh yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah.
one more that was good. I Want to Come Over,
I Want to Come Over. I think it was. Yep,
and
I think it was.
one more. I can't.
Who owns that catalog now?
Universal.
Universal does.
They own that part of it.
Yeah.
I didn't have but 3 of the songs.
But they own the Music Mill catalog now. Yeah.
I tried to get some of the first ones, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And
Wow, that's crazy. So anyway, so let's go back. So you're going
back to Donnie
So
Canada.
Donnie comes down because I have never heard this story directly from you.
Yeah.
okay,
So
Donnie
comes down, brings his whole crew. This is exciting to me. And he said he put like 40 miners up. He rented out the whole Hall of Fame over there, is what he told me.
Yeah.
With all the miners for like however long, months or years or whatever long it was.
No, it was like maybe a month or so.
And that they were over there dynamiting fools, blowing that hole up there. That's a big hole down, and it's
Apparently.
all rock there. Yeah, right?
Yeah. Well, it's all rock underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably no
3
permitted.
feet down
Probably
anywhere.
no permits on that.
If you got out here and dug 3 feet down, you'd probably hit rock.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's
But,
the way it
but,
all is.
but
over
Donnie
there.
told me, and I'll get this wrong probably, but he said it was going to be some kind of X amount of dollars. They said, hell, my guys can do that in 2 weeks. We're used to blowing up rocks. He said we came down and we did it faster than we were supposed to or something. I don't know. It's what he
Yeah.
told me,
Well, they had the outside walls up in no time.
but wow.
Not a permit.
But
site.
then that was really the easy part. The hard part is the acoustical part.
Right.
You know, so that's John Sanford.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, the
Boy.
acoustic guy, yeah.
I'm losing it too. He was a guy. He's good. He was really good. It sounded so good, and still does.
Your favorite room?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It sure felt good in there for a lot of years.
Oh, I'm
man.
telling you.
Well, you made some great records in there.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Hey,
Boy,
Scaife
he
got
did.
to sit in there and
Achy Breaky,
Do it- yeah.
KT,
Yep.
Alabama.
the Alabama, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Man, boy, there were well, you know, think about how often somebody was recording there, even if it wasn't Harold,
Yeah.
making a record in there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, golly,
It was Oaks or
Wasn't there? two-
Dolly or George Jones or what's her name? Martina
Yep. She cut
The Oaks
Independence
got there?
Day.
Oaks.
Yep.
Was that after
Everybody, you can't
Johnny
probably
Cash.
name somebody.
Yes, Johnny.
that
Everybody
didn't work
got there. Everybody cut there.
Yep.
Tell them the story about Johnny Cash in June with the knob.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, I never got to do one record. See, when I went to Mercury, Johnny was leaving the label, and he wouldn't. I tried to get him to come back, but he had already made another deal. He said, "I can't. I've got to go." You know, and so then. Johnny Paycheck was on the label, and he left. And the only people left were the Statlers and Kathy Mattea.
that's what they left you with.
I had a guy, but I dropped him.
Kathy was great.
Kathy was good. Well, I wanted to keep her. What is that little guy's name? Well, I had David Lynn Jones. And dropped him.
Yep.
David Lynn Jones. Yeah.
He was a talented guy.
Yes, he
Talented
was.
guy.
And then we had John Brannon for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Remember that?
He's still around.
And the girl that worked down at the stockyard, Donna
Oh,
Mead,
Donna Mead.
had
Yeah.
her. Buddy Killen produced her. And I guess that was about it.
Don, I mean, what was the
But
big guy?
the-
What was that big chunky guy that sang down there too? Had a great voice.
Oh, the
Oh
Stockyard.
yeah, big
Heavy-
guy. Oh,
Heavy set guy.
he was so good.
He was
man.
a great
He had
voice.
a name with a band name with him, like John Smith and the Hurricanes, or
Yeah,
something. What
it
was
was
it?
that-
Or Lose Control, or Gain Control, or was that? Them
I
band?
can't remember his
Yeah,
name.
What
now.
was his name?
I don't remember.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
he Charlie. Oh, shoot.
I don't remember.
He had a voice on him, man, that would just knock you over.
Tommy Riggs.
Tommy
That's
Riggs,
it.
that's it. That's exactly who it
Well,
was.
good memory.
Wow.
Tommy Riggs.
He could sing his ass off.
Yeah.
I was talking about when Johnny and June recorded at the Mill, and
Yeah, sorry, I
knob.
got it totally away from that.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
you showed him the trick.
long story short, I never did but one record with Johnny and June. And it was kind of a thing because Dottie West and Mark Gray wrote the song. Mm-hmm. And it was the last song either one of them wrote. Mark died not too long after that. Mm-hmm. And Dottie got killed immediately on the way to the Opry.
Right.
And the song, ironically, was called When I Look Beyond the River. And it was a great song. Yeah. So I did it on Johnny, and it had a beautiful fiddle intro on it. It was good. Spent a lot of time on it. Got Karl Marx to come in and tune. Mm-hmm. This is before anybody had Pro Tools, you know. Mm-hmm. Maybe Ed might have had some at that time. But
I don't think anybody did that.
we didn't have any in the
They
studio.
did it on the Fairlight, didn't they? When they
Dead
did on
Sea.
Yeah.
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 But we did have everything else we needed. And there were things that were accessible if you were willing to put the money into it. So long story short, I wanted to be a great sounding record, and it was because we got June in tune, you know. and Marty Stewart, I ran into him one day, and he told me this story. He said, I said, "What are you doing?" He said, Johnny stopped me a couple of days ago and said, Marty, he wanted his Johnny voice, Marty. And he said, "Yeah, John." He said, "Harold Shedd's got a knob over there that'll tune June."
Tune June.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny, man.
Not every board comes with one of those knobs.
Nope. Man, I remember when he was over there that day. I hung out in the lobby that day. Y'all working a little past 6.
Yeah.
And Johnny was out there. I just hung around just to see him. You know, it was
Yeah.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I never got to meet him.
I didn't meet him. I just saw
Johnny
him in the lobby.
he was a true artist
Yeah.
in every sense of the word. Mm-hmm. When he did Sunday Morning Coming Down,
Oh, God.
there was no doubt how good he was.
No.
you know.
No.
Man, you remember talking about everybody recording there. Was just talking about just legendary people. Remember when Roy Rogers
Yeah, man.
Wow,
and
yeah.
spent a
He
week
was on RCA, right?
He spent like 2 weeks there working
Yeah.
on an album. Yeah, they did all the thing with all the young country artists singing with him.
Yeah.
Nicest guy I ever met in my
I got
life.
to meet him when he was doing that.
Yeah, man. He came over, and I'll never forget. Harold came. You were already at the lake when you came by. You said, I thought I might hang around in Gurm Roy for a while myself. Man, you know, isn't that funny how many generations he spanned? I was a hero as a kid.
Yeah.
My ex-mother-in-law was in love with him from the time she was a little girl.
Yep.
And she started coming down. I had to try to tell my wife to tell her not to let her mom come down. She came down every day to see him and tell him what happened on their soaps. They watched the same soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, she can't come back down here. And so when she'd come by one day and told him that, and he said, hey, it's okay. I like your mother-in-law coming by and tell me what's going on with the soap. Isn't that funny?
You know, it's funny. I've got a picture of me and Roy and Clint Black.
Oh, wow. I
Because
don't have
they
that.
did it. They kind of
Well,
did a thing
yeah,
together
he
for a
and
while.
Clint did some stuff together. Yeah.
Yep.
But I've got to.
And they do look like brothers.
They kind of looked alike, didn't they?
yeah.
But Roy was such a nice guy. I mean, good.
Oh,
Lord.
yeah. Yeah, he was.
I mean, you couldn't get nicer than that.
One of my favorite stories. They had been there for like 2 weeks. I could be off on time. They'd been there for a while working on that record. It was going to be the last day, and it was at the end of I think it was a Friday, the end of the day, and I was coming down late down the stairs, and I was the last one upstairs, which I normally was. I usually stay and get stuff done at the end of the day. And it wasn't later, and it was probably 6, in the summer, and I'm walking down the stairs, and as I'm coming down those stairs, I hear Roy say to his son, well, Dusty, you ready to get on the horses and ride? And I went, yes! And they jumped, and I said, that is so cool. And he said, what? I said, because they were sending a car to get him every day and take him back to the hotel. And I said, you could have said, Dusty, call the limo, but you said get on the horses and ride. They thought I was the goofiest guy in the world. I was
Don't you wish you had an iPhone then just to video that?
Yeah, it was so cool, man. I got to tell you, everybody in that building during that period of time was like, you're not going to believe who's here.
Yeah,
Roy Rogers.
Yeah,
it's Roy Rogers. Yeah, you know, and I was telling somebody that a while back that story, and they said, well, who all knows who that is? I said, well, I'll tell you what, Elton John recorded a song called Roy Rogers on his biggest album in history.
That's right.
Hell, we're watching Roy Rogers tonight, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how big a deal Roy Rogers was.
Well, yeah. That was...
Yeah.
He was just a little guy, too. He wasn't,
Dale, she was a little bossy.
Yeah.
And so we were talking in the lobby by the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so interesting, Roy was.
Yeah, he was.
So nice and everything. And so we're talking, and Dale come out, and we were talking, and she didn't interrupt him to begin with. And we were talking, and finally she said, Roy, I mean, like real sharp, you know, and he said, yes. You need to be in the studio. They need you in here. She turned around walked away. And he just looked at me and he said, women. That's all he said. Women. Yeah. And
That's
he turned
funny.
around. Went,
She got a little bossy, did she? She was road managing the situation.
Yeah.
That's funny.
No, I started at Tree Publishing in 1988 and just kind of walked into the tape room. In fact, I was waiting tables before that at a place called Granite Falls.
But where you came from and how'd you get here to do all that stuff?
Where I came from? I came from Bowling Green, Ohio.
Okay.
And my dad was the country editor for Billboard magazine. And so I'd come down here and spend the summers with him. And then when I actually the day after I graduated from high school, I moved to Nashville and, hung out with my dad, and that's how I got to meet everybody. Really, I have close quarters and mods and various bars.
Mm-hmm. Where a lot of business took place in Nashville.
Where all the business took place. I mean, even O'Charlie's. You remember O'Charlie's over there on Hillsborough Road on 21st Avenue where they had 3 for $1, not 1 for $1, not 2 for $1, but 3 for $1. And
I'm sure Chuck and Brian remember it. Go ahead.
Yes, we did. Yeah, I remember I kind of remember Chuck and Brian there. But we'd go there and meet for happy hour every afternoon. And that's where I met Paul Worley and I met, a whole bunch of people. And then a few years later, I decided, okay, I really kind of want to be in the publishing business. And I went up. It was kind of a divine situation. I walked into Tree and went to the second floor, and a friend of mine, Sean Heflin, was working at the center desk there. And she's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "I really don't know what I'm doing here." And she introduced me to John Van Meter and Greg Dorschel in the tape room, and I felt like this is home. All this, it's like the kitchen of Mom's house, Thanksgiving, all the songwriters hung out there. It was a tiny room. It was a very small room with a bunch of equipment, but everybody wanted to be in there. That's where all the music was. That's where all the songs got pitched. That's where the ideas happened.
Yeah.
That's where we came up with ideas to pitch songs to Harold for, different various acts. And it was just fascinating to me. And I loved the technical part of it. I loved making tapes. There was a writer in town named Randy Boudreau. And the first day I was working there, he came in and he said, Jason, Paul Worley wants me to he wants 3 copies of every song in my catalog. The guy had like 280 songs. And I stayed there till 2 o'clock in the morning. There was a big pile of tapes sitting there. And I made 3 copies of every song in his catalog. And I got in trouble for that because they're like, don't listen to Randy. And so Randy decided he was going to buy me a drink every time for every tape I made for him.
Oh, that's great.
But there's a phone.
That's Harold's.
So anyway, I worked at Tree for, 3 or 4 years. And I left there and I went to run Gary Morris's publishing company and had some great success over there. We had a Patti Loveless cut called She Drew a Broken Heart. And
I just muted it.
And so
Who was it?
we had success there. John McElroy and Ned McElroy and a bunch of really great writers were there. And I was there for a while. And then all of a sudden I was pitching songs to Al Cooley over at Atlantic. and I'd never met the guy before. So I was taking him like a copy of a song for him and one for Rick Blackburn.
Who ran the label, yeah.
Yeah, who ran the label. And one day Dad calls me up. He said, Jason, I'm going to a number one party over at Atlantic. You want to come with me? And I said, sure, I want to go. I can meet Al, and I go over to meet Al. And we're standing in the courtyard as a John Michael Montgomery number one. And I go over and I say, Mr. Cooley, I'm Jason Morris. I just want to introduce myself from Cimarron Music. I think I was at Cimarron at that time. And he blows up. And he just goes, You keep bringing me songs for me and for Rick. I'm the A&R guy. You don't need to bring them to Rick. He starts yelling at me in the middle of this courtyard at this number one party. And I'd never been so glad to see my dad in my life. And Dad walks over and goes, Al, have you met my son Jason? And I went, be in my office Monday morning at 9 o'clock. And so we became great friends. And, as this all went along, I just kept getting job offers. Al would call me up. He's like, you're on a list. You're going to get an offer from this and this and this and this. And, it kind of happened that way. I kind of wish I would have spent more time at one place as opposed to jumping as much as I did. But, it was what it was. It was back in the days when I worked for Rick Hall at Fame.
And Muscle Shows, yeah.
And this was in Nashville.
Yeah, but I mean, legendary. They're based
legendary,
on Muscle Shoals.
yeah, Muscle Shoals. And
Remind me of a story when he gets.
I learned a lot from that, and then I went to 1010 with Jewel and Barry Coburn, and then I went to Hori Pro with Bob Beckham.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time there and had a lot of success over there.
At Hori Pro, I did. We had a lot of success. 1010 was pretty good to me too, but Hori Pro was about a 7-year venture. That was a good deal.
Yeah.
And then I went to work for
Beckham there all that time.
Beckham was there the whole time and till the very end.
Who did you work with over there? I mean, who were some of the folks?
The songwriters?
Yeah,
Mike Geiger, Woody Mullis,
yeah.
Bobby Taylor, John Ramey.
And Woody and those guys got Songwriter of the Year. Mike did like a couple years in a row.
Hillbilly Shoes.
Yeah, but they had like Songwriter of the Year at BMI. Didn't
Absolutely.
They? Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Did they write Put That Thing Away?
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't.
No, they did.
No, they didn't.
Who did?
You wrote that?
Tony Hazelton and I, yeah.
Tony did.
Tony and I,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, did they really? Because we had that in our
That's one of the biggest losses of my life, and I'll tell you that story later. It's a funny story.
Wait a minute.
The biggest lawsuit.
Biggest losses of my life.
Oh.
Put that thing
believe-
away.
You
That
that's
was
a
Tony
hit
Hazelton.
for somebody.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the story about that in just a second. But go ahead. I didn't bring this up for that. I didn't think you were
No.
gonna-
It sounds like a Woody and Mike
I'll tell you the
song.
story, Harold. You'll remember it when I tell you. Go ahead.
It sounds like a Woody and Mike song.
Yeah.
We had that. We played that over there all the time for some reason. We
Well,
loved
there's
that
a
song.
long story behind that.
That's a great song.
I would have never even thought of that for the next 10 podcasts that you brought it up. But anyway.
How'd you meet Harold?
I met Harold when he was at Mercury, actually. And I was in a place called Cimarron Music that was behind the Mercury building. Or it was in the Mercury building. It was behind y'all's offices. I had Mike Lawler on the other side of my wall.
Okay.
And so that's how I got to go know Mike.
You had who?
Mike Lawler.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You remember mine.
Yeah, Lawler. Yeah, your
And,
right-hand man, lefty.
Yeah.
And so one day I called up and I asked for a meeting with Harold. And they said yes. I said, okay. And I walked out of our door, around to the front door, and came in, and Harold and I sat and listened to songs for a while. And then we just were always in the same place at the same time a lot. And that went on through the years, I mean, down to Floribama. And, I was down there with Max T. Barnes. I had him signed as a writer.
Oh, he was a good one.
Boy, no kidding.
Oh,
yeah,
Max
but I'm
T.
interested in that. Like all those writers, you worked the Hori Pro thing.
Oh,
Maybe other things were bigger. Man, when you were at Hori Pro, y'all were killing it over there.
We did a pretty good job there. Yeah, it was Ronnie Gant was a really big deal.
There's a great story. I don't know the story. I just remember some of the hook line, and you probably know it. I think it was Beckham. And it was like, well, he'll like that, and so will like that, and so. But the Japs won't like it.
But the Japs won't like it.
What was that story?
Beckham had a lot of...
well, first of all, it was a Japanese-owned company.
Yeah, Hori Pro.
Yeah.
The Horis in Japan are like William Morris here. They made
so that was the real name, Hori Pro.
Hori, yeah. And...
okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of great stories about Bob and Ronnie going over to Japan to meet the Horis, and they sat down and they're talking to Kaz Hori's father, who started the company, and Bob Beckham's sitting there with Kaz's dad, and they're talking. It's like, and Bob says, "Well, where are you from?" He says, "I'm from Nagasaki," and Bob goes, Nagasaki. That sounds familiar," and Mr. Hori says, "You blew it up." Of course, it sounds familiar.
That's what we try to do in the music business. Blow stuff up.
Yeah.
But they were great partners. I mean, they represented Kiss. Did all their Kiss
Wow,
and
way to go.
And oh God, I can't even think of all the. Mother told me, yes, she told me, how many girls like you. Lots of bands, but they did. They represented politicians. They did chefs. They did.
Wow.
It was a huge industry over in Japan at the time, and they spent a lot of money here. I mean, it was one of those things where, like you ask for money and you get it, and Bob got it, and
then turned it into more.
And turned it into more money, and we had a lot of success over there. John Ramey and Mike and Woody and
yeah.
I mean, it was a hot little deal, and I loved it. But I kind of needed to go do something else, and that's when Stegall pulled me aside and said, Keith Stegall pulled me aside and said, "You want to come A&R for me? I'm looking for a Alan Jackson record." Actually, there was a job between there, but. And I said, "Heck yeah, man, that's what I want to do." Because to me, publishing is a wonderful situation. You have this catalog, and you got these writers, and you get to go show them off. You go, hey, play them for all your friends, and everybody loves it. When you do this A&R thing, the whole town is your publishing company, and you can go to any publishing company and go find anything you want to. It taught me a whole nother side of it because I was so focused on just one publishing company at a time. As an A&R guy, you could go anywhere, and especially when you're looking for songs like Alan Jackson, or whoever Keith is working with, because he's a big deal, Very well respected, very great songwriter, great producer, made great records, still does.
Kidding. Yeah.
I mean, from Zach Brown to, I remember Keith and I going to, over the tin roof in the back parking lot on a very cold day like this. It was raining, and he said, "Come with me. I want you to come see this band." And I go back there, and we're standing in the rain, and wearing one of Keith's little tiny jackets because I didn't bring one. And we're listening to this band, and he said, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Well, man, it kind of sounds like a James Taylor cover band." He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "That's my retirement," and it was Zach Brown.
Wow.
And,
that was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good pick. And we went down to Georgia, and he made a great record, made a couple of them.
Sure did.
And. Did you hire Keith?
No, I didn't.
Was that a Luke thing? Yeah. I wasn't sure. I used to pitch songs to Keith. I mean, that's how we got to know each other. But I'd always see you there, and I didn't know if y'all were.
But I knew Keith. I've known him for a long time.
Yeah, he and Chris Waters wrote
He
that song. We're
recorded
in
the
this love
first
together.
song we ever got recorded.
He what?
Keith did.
Well, which one?
Uh,
I want to go somewhere.
I want to go somewhere.
I forgot about
Really?
that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
It was actually one of the first, what do you call it, animated videos.
Really?
Partially animated. I guess the first one that was ever done in Nashville.
Well,
I
he's a
didn't know
talented
that.
guy, and you know,
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
I've been very, very fortunate to be around a lot of really great,
Boy, no
great
kidding.
people. You know, Harold included, of course. But you
Wow.
know, from Buddy Killen, who I worked for twice,
Yeah.
and I worked for Rick Hall, and I worked for Bob Beckham, and that was just an amazing experience.
And let's
And Russ Zavitson.
but Bob Beckham, man, back up for a second, man, what a legend he was. Oh my,
Huge. Combine music.
and the Gants.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know Ron.
Ron
I
and
got to know
Don.
Ronnie better later, but Don was one of my early mentors.
Don
I
was
loved
a
him.
love
huge
Don.
deal.
I did
I
too,
like
man.
Ronnie too.
I loved Ronnie.
They were both great. I used to stop and see Don when I was in Muscle Shoals on a regular basis. He always was like, he was early on one of those guys. And I came up here and I always stopped by and see.
Don was like us.
He was.
Old Friends music.
Yeah, but I stopped by to see him when he started Old Friends here one day. You'll love this. And since I don't know how well you knew Don, but you knew him well. So I stopped by one day. I'd always stop by to see him when I was up here every week, say hi, and he'd give me pump up talks, because it was so hard coming back and forth. So I stopped by to see him one day. He had just started Old Friends. And he
What
said,
a great company that was.
And I stopped in. He said, well, he didn't say your phrase, why the long face, but he should have. And he said, what's the matter? And I said, man, I'm working 3 jobs. I come up here one day a week to pitch songs. I get my butt handed to me, and
Drive home.
and it's just and he's going, yeah, it's pretty tough, isn't it? Yeah, and I said, yeah. He said it's really hard when you don't have any hits yet. Nobody, yeah. I said, what the hell you want me to do about it? That was Don.
That's Don.
Yeah. But he was such a good guy. Boy, what a talented man.
And his brother
Oh, my
Ronnie
God.
was one of the most laid back human beings I've ever met in my
Some
life.
people may not know this, and I hate to get it steered away real quick, but he and his Don Gant was in a band called Neon Philharmonic.
Yeah,
And
sure,
it wasn't really a
absolutely.
band. They knocked the Beatles out of number one in 1969 with Let It Be with a song called Morning Girl. I bought that record. I knew Don for 2 or 3 years before I knew that was him singing that record.
Yeah.
Because I thought they were British, and they were trying to sound British. They cut that on a 4-track at the Old Acuff Road place with Don and Ronnie engineering on a 4-track. Anyway, side story.
Wow.
Ronnie was good at that.
I didn't know
If you remember that song, the Morning Girl, how'd you sleep last night?
Yep.
Big hit.
Don signed one of my writers now, Angela Cassett.
Mm-hmm.
He had her and actually 2 of my writers, Doug Gill. He wrote over at Old Friends also.
Who you
I
still
believe.
work with some.
I will still work with him on a daily basis.
See, that's something I think it's unusual these days, too, that people are going to work with writers who were with they 30 years down. Tony Hazelden with all of us still.
You don't leave good stuff.
Huh?
You don't leave good stuff. You
No,
know
but
what I mean?
we're all still the best of friends and family.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in families. We were in companies, but
Absolutely.
they were families. you
Yeah.
know?
It was
right.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you did. And then happy hour.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But Don, he was brilliant, and Ronnie was brilliant.
Yep.
And we lost Ronnie and Bob
Yep.
a matter of months apart,
Yep.
which was just a terrible thing. And Ronnie always kind of, not to get into a morbid situation, but he always knew he was going to die early because Don died early, and from totally separate situations. But
Yeah.
man, I really loved working with those people. I missed that time, that sweet spot.
Those were good times.
You were killing it. You were killing it, and everybody was having a good time.
Absolutely.
And
that was the best times. You want me to remind you of the story?
Oh, yeah,
Now,
go.
What were you going? You said remind me of that. We were talking about. I said I wouldn't forget it.
Oh, I was going to tell you. I don't think I've told Wade. He told me this story, and I'm sure it's true. That he was in Oregon in the airport and was going to fly back to Los Angeles, I guess, and he said he looked over and Marlon Brando was in the line waiting to get on the plane, and he said, I didn't want to gurm him, but I did want to meet him, and he said, I just walked over to him and said, Mr. Brando, I like your movies, and I appreciate your talent, and I enjoy what you do. And he said, so with that, I turned around, went back, got in line, and Tommy was a funny son of a bitch, man. He said, and about a year later, I was in London, and they had a reception, and a lot of people, and the press, and said this girl came up to me and said, well, Mr. Collins, I know you wrote all of the songs and all the especially the ones that Merle Haggard recorded. Merle cut 28 of Tommy's songs.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I think 4 of them were number one. Cut his first number one, High on a Hilltop.
Yeah.
And then Carolyn, and then The Roots of My Raisin Run Deep, and then one more.
Wow.
But anyway, said, I guess you're having a great stay in England, and he said, yes, ma'am. And she said, you've had such an illustrious career. Do you have any regrets? And he said, yeah, I have one. And she said, well, would you mind sharing that with us? And he said, no, not at all. I said, I wish I'd have spent a little more time with Brando.
A little more time. He saw him in the airport. It's funny. I just saw Tom Collins.
Look. Got you.
That's funny.
I just saw Tom down in
Wish I'd
Venice
spent
Beach,
a little
Florida.
more time with Brando.
You saw who?
Tom Collins.
Yeah, but that's a different Tom. Yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah.
So
Tommy.
for people who's heard this podcast up to this point, this would be episode 6 or so. You need to explain what germ means.
A germ, yeah.
That's what you run from.
Everybody says it, but
I guess it's a music business phrase.
It is.
no, it's. I looked it up. It's specifically a Nashville thing.
Oh, is
Is
it?
it really?
A germ is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably is.
So
It's just something you can't get rid of.
try to explain what it means for people who live in Oregon.
Well, how would you explain that? Somebody that's
Well, that's,
It's a wannabe. It's somebody that
yeah,
clings to
it's a
you
guy that can't resist.
yeah,
and can't take no for an answer.
yeah, and,
Yeah,
and,
he-
and
he-
doesn't really get it.
Yeah, he's got to be uncool no matter what.
I think we've probably all fallen into that category at one time or just one conversation.
Yeah, I'm
where
sure
you go,
I have.
God, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
but
have
you
to.
know to get yourself out of the groove.
Yeah.
Some people just stay there,
Yeah,
and that's a germ.
yeah.
My first germ hat, Glenn, I have it, still have it. Glenn Campbell gave
I
it
remember
to me.
that hat.
Yeah, you just
He always wanted to go. He wanted to go germ somebody every day.
yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
I'm gonna be somebody's pain in the
even
ass.
He said, "Let's go germ Jimmy Bowen." I said, "I'll go with you, and I'll take pictures of it because I'd like to see that actually."
I'd like to see that.
That's
Did you and Bowen do much
Bowen
work together?
was not in, so
No.
we didn't germ.
Yeah.
Did you all work together much?
I did 2 albums with him for
With Jimmy?
Atlantic.
No,
Yeah.
he's talking about Glenn Campbell.
I'm talking about Jimmy
You're
Bowen.
talking about Jimmy Bowen, yeah.
I never worked with
Y'all
Jimmy
never
Bowen.
did anything commingled? No. All right.
I didn't really care for Bowen that much.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying.
Well-
I don't think you're alone.
He tried to get me a job. I didn't like that.
No,
I remember that. Yep.
Okay, next subject.
Yeah. So, hey,
Well, that's kind of personal, you know.
Yeah, right. Sure it is.
Especially,
You try to take a man's money.
well, he couldn't have done what we did.
No.
yeah.
He's not geared like that.
Nope.
But you stopped him with a major success that nobody could say no to. Yeah. So,
What
you know.
is that? We baffled him with perpetual excellence.
I like it. He didn't know what to do with it, did he?
Yep.
That's great.
That's funny.
No.
Oh my God, man, that's funny. I would have never thought of that Cooter Brown song. I'm sitting there thinking about that whole story now.
Cooter
Put that
Brown.
thing
Yeah.
away.
Put that thing away thing.
They could be,
That was, you know,
Leroy Parnell should have done that.
well, you know,
Oh, he would have been good for that.
you know, there's a whole story about that. You know, I've always been a writer. I don't really consider myself a writer because I couldn't do it consistently. But every now and then I'd have an idea and write.
Sure.
And so I had bought a new house in 93 or 94 over in Westmead. And the house was all glass in the back. It was a little house
Yeah.
up on a hill in Westmead on Rodney Drive over there. And it was all glass, and we were going to remodel it. And I was going to paint it, and I'd never painted a house before. So Tony Hazelden had just remodeled his house. He didn't do it personally because he was actually writing songs and making
He was
money.
living around the corner, wasn't he?
Not that time. This is when this is a different house.
Okay.
And so anyway, Tony said, get one of those Wagner power painters. This is where this song comes from. And he said, they're easy to use. I've seen them. He said, when I lived down in Thibodaux, before I moved to Nashville, we had one. So I bought the one that fills the roller up, not the sprayer, the roller thing. And like everything I do, I didn't read the directions. So I started in the corner of the wall, and the whole back of the house is glass. I was going to start there, so I just turned it on. Well, if I'd have read the directions, I'd have read that you turn it on for 2 or 3 minutes, let it fill the thing up, and go. You know, if you leave it on, it's not good. I didn't read that. Well, anyway, before I did that, I had put kills in this inner bathroom to get ready to paint it, and I'd shut the little door and have a fan. I was high as a kite when I came out. I came out because I thought I was going to fall down. So I said, shit, I'll get over here and start doing this Wagner power paint and rub my eyes. So I started going. Just as I started going, kabloom, paint goes everywhere, all over the glass and everything. And I'm still like, you know, and as I was doing it, I was singing to myself, I need to put this thing away before I hurt somebody, you know, and making a joke about it. I was high as a kite. And Tony Hazelden walked in. This is a true story. And Tony said, well, what the hell did you just do? And I said, I don't know, but I need to put this thing away before I hurt somebody. I've been singing and laughing. And he goes, man, that's a great
That's
song.
a song.
So we sat down and started that song together.
Okay.
And so we got most of it done. So the next week we were at the mill, and we were going to sit down and write. Well, I can't write like those guys do. It takes me 3 years to finish a song. I do it in the car, and I'm stopping, writing, I'll hum and stuff, and I get it done. I'll sit on the guitar and figure it out. So we were going to do that, and I was sitting there looking at Tony while he was trying to write lyrics, and Jimmy Stewart walked in.
Oh, yeah.
One of the funniest men in the world.
Yeah.
And Jimmy said, he's laughing, what the hell is that? He said, I want to be a part. So we sat down and finished the three of us together. So we went across the street, and Butch, who was perfect for that kind of song, I don't know if you remember the demo, he did all the voiceovers of the goofy people. It was crazy. So we did it. So nothing really happened with it. Well, every time I did a demo, and it was on a Saturday that we did, like I always did, Jimmy and Tony and I walked across the street, back to the mill, and always walked into the control room because Joe and Jim were always in there mixing something on Saturday. And I always played them the new songs. That's how they knew everything. That's how they knew Achy Breaky Heart. Everything we did, I'd come in and play for them first when I walked back on Saturday. So they heard it and laughed, thought it was funny. So several years later, when the Cooter Brown thing was happening, and Mike and those guys had written all those songs, and they were all great songs. They wrote everything else, I think, as I remember. Joe and Jim were going to produce the record. So one day, Joe and Jim called me and said, hey, put that thing away down here. And I thought, really? You know, I don't think we'd ever pitch. I think I played it for you. People, we just thought it was funny. So I took it down, and next thing I know, they cut the song. So anyway, that's when I first got to know Mike, and I didn't know Mike and Woody before that. And they were all excited about it. So anyway, they cut it, and it was on Warner Brothers. So they did a showcase
Cooter Brown.
that I didn't get to go to, but that record was great.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to go to the showcase. They did a showcase down at the Exit Inn.
That's why we played it all the time.
And they played it down at the Exit Inn. And the next morning, I didn't go to the show. I'm coming in. I got Jerry House on the radio, who at that time was Bobby Bones. He was everywhere.
He was huge.
And he's going on about this showcase he saw the night before and about that song. And I'm going, are you kidding me? I can't believe this. I mean, this came out of nowhere. I didn't expect anything from that. So it was going to be the first single. And last minute, Jim Ed Norman decided it shouldn't be. Well, everybody was upset. Everybody was convinced. And I every now and then somebody will bring that up and say, if that had been a single, it'd been it. Mike Geiger said it. They all say that. That should have been the first single.
No, they love that song.
It was such a goofy song. It was,
They were a great band also.
They were a great band.
Yeah, it's clever. It's clever, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got to give all the credit to Tony and Jimmy because I would have never finished it. I just thought it was goofy, Cootie
Brown was Montgomery Gentry before Montgomery Gentry
was Montgomery Gentry. Yeah, it was. And Joe and Jim did that too.
But that was a great song. You did a great job on that.
Oh well, thanks. Well,
Painting a house.
Tony and
Just
Tony
trying to paint a house.
Tony and Jimmy really. I got the idea from getting high sniffing paint, but But anyway, that's funny you brought that up because I had thought about that in a long time. But boy, that's funny.
I'd forgotten. I thought that Mike and Woody had written that, but now that looking back on it, you're right.
I mean, I think it was the only outside song on the record.
I think it was.
But they were just
That was a great band. That was so much fun.
Oh, it was a great band. See, but you had that over there. Y'all had built-in stuff like that too. It's like wow, they were so good. Anyway, off the subject, but when you brought it up, I had to finish the story. So
no, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So what's different about Nashville now than what it was like in the 90s? Is it
everything?
Is it just a decline in album sales, which declined revenue, which declined everything else? Is that what?
I think that was the beginning of it. I think it's and I don't know enough about the current crop. I know some of them, and I see a lot of who we were and some of the ones I do know, but I don't know it's the same thing because honestly, even though like Jason was over at Horry Pro and they were rocking, and we were at the Music Mill and we were rocking, but we were all friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we all exchanged music. I would hear songs that they were doing, and they would hear songs we were doing, just because we were sharing music because we loved it.
If you had a meeting at 2:00 to go play songs for somebody, you left at 1:00 because you walked down the street and you played the session for everybody that you stop in and say, "Oh, hey man, listen to this," before you even got to the label.
Yep.
You just play it for your friends, and everybody freak out about it, and it was a free for all, really. To be honest with you, if somebody likes something,
sure.
If I liked a song of yours, and I didn't have it, I'd play your song.
Oh, exactly. That happened a lot of times. We play other people's songs. I don't have something, but I'll tell you who's got a song like you're looking for.
Yeah,
Jason
I'll tell you
Morrison's
where it
got one
is.
over there. Yeah, and I know this. I can remember, and I'm almost stealing an exact phrase from you. I can't tell you the number of times when Harold and I would meet about something, and he'd say, "I got to play you this."
Yeah,
I don't know what it's for, or who it's for. And
I love it.
So, and he'd always say, "God Almighty, wait do you that phrase." And just because he wanted to share something with me, I don't know where it's going or if anything's ever going to happen with it, but what a great song.
But I got to play this for you.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that's funny. I told this story a million times. I signed this girl named Annie O'Brien. Remember Annie?
I like Annie.
Annie was a thing. I mean, she was a thing. She couldn't get out of her own way. She had a lot of personal issues with kind of. But I'll never forget, I went on a weekday evening to go over and put together a little track. I'd programmed a little drum track and had John Willis come on and play a few guitars. But it's just a simple little demo to put this song down with her singing. And she went out and put the vocal on. We got the little track done, and the lights were down, and she was singing like she was singing to a million people. This song absolutely destroyed me. And I made it. It's still cassette days. I remember I got in my car, and I remember it was a Friday because everything was closed and everybody left or whatever. And I went down and bought a 6-pack of beer and played over in my car, rode around Music Road trying to find somebody I could play it for.
Anybody at all.
I don't care who you are. I just want you to hear this. And I rode around for about 34 minutes, couldn't find anybody, and went home. I was so excited about that song. That song of hers, What Goes Around. I don't know if you remember that song. I was like, man, somebody's got to hear this. Anybody.
I had one of those, Anna Wilson, when I was
Anna
10.
Wilson.
She had a song called Way Down.
What Goes Around Comes Around. Oh, my God.
She had a song called Way Down, and I heard that, and I stayed awake all night just playing it over and over and over again. Just like, why is it this cut? Why can't I get this cut?
And I don't know now. Maybe they do, but I don't get a sense that same thing still happens in there. First of all, it's all spread out now.
Well, it's also very compartmentalized.
Yeah, and Music Row's not really Music Row anymore like it used to be.
But
that's the biggest change.
Yeah.
It's not the campus it used to be.
There's not a Music Row.
No.
It's Condo Row.
Row.
Yeah.
But it was a campus. It was a friendly place to be.
Yep.
And you could be the strangest person you could possibly be and still be okay.
Yep.
And but just bring some good music, and bring a 6-pack.
Yeah, and everybody knew everybody, and I think that.
Well, you said it earlier. There's not a mods anymore.
No, there's no mods. There's no
not
close quarters.
Nope.
Two cans.
Nope.
There's not a tavern on the road.
There's no phasons. There's no
Nope.
tavern.
Nope.
You're right. I mean, that's where everybody congregated and talked about stuff. And hey, the old, come out to my car and listen to this.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many songs did you get cut sitting in your car? A million.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, do you want to? I got to play this for you. Come out of the car.
Yep.
Which meant a lot of things, but it also meant playing a song.
Oh yeah, it really did. No, it really did. Yeah, it's I just don't
But
know.
it motivated you.
It motivated. It made you get up the next
Yeah.
day and go do it again.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Made you think
Go do it
about-
again.
I need something like that.
It was like
It's
back in those
spiritual
days.
is what it is.
It was like if the Philadelphia Eagles were on that corner, and the Kansas City Chiefs were over there. I don't care if they're going to be in the Super Bowl or not. They all got together, drank at night, and hung out and talked about the plays they were going to run. It's just everybody knew everybody. We were all right there.
we were
I got a
so
song.
fortunate to be there.
Go call Bob right now. We got to get over there and play this for him right
absolutely.
now. I can't tell you the number of times I called and Brian's old boss that Rob Galbraith.
Rob, yeah.
Years ago over at Millsap Music. He told me one time, he said, man, he said, back in the day, he said, you would call me so excited about a song, I'd stop what I'm doing and say, come on over right now.
Do it now.
He
Do it
said,
now.
most of the time I passed, but I had to hear it because you were so excited.
Yeah.
And we were excited.
That was back in the day when I could even call Galani, and he'd go, my sister worked for him, but at the same time, but we knew each other. I'd go, man, I've got this thing for Brooks and Dunn. I got to play this for you.
Yep.
And he'd go, come on, let's go. Or meet me. My favorite one was when he was in his car and he called me. And I said, I've got a song I've got to play for you. He goes, I'm in front of your office. Come on out.
Yep.
I was like, okay.
Yep.
But everybody was approachable.
I remember
Yeah.
Dwayne from the Oak Ridge Boys.
Yeah.
They'd be on the road, and I'd know they were back off the road because every time he got back to the road, he'd call me and say, hey, I'm going to be down the road. I think he lived out in Hendersonville.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to be on the road in a little while. If you got anything new, bring it down to me. And he'd call when he got in the parking lot. I'd run down with my cassette and give it to him, say hi, and he'd drive off and listen. I mean, I think that I've said this before too, and I think we'll all agree, and I'm not the only one who ever said it, but I think in those days, everybody came to town for one thing. The big goal was to get a record deal.
Yep.
If they got a record deal, that was like getting a key
Then you got the publishing
to the
deal.
greatest songs in the
Yeah,
world.
absolutely.
You got to go to the greatest publisher and share the great songs. I don't think that is the same way anymore. I
And
think
for
that,
a while, they'll go in style.
Yep, absolutely. There you go.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
But that was such a big thing to get to go because and that's the other thing. If you went to our company, there was a certain brand surrounding those songs. There just was of the people that we had. If you went to Hori Pro, it was a different thing. They had different.
They had
than
a
we
different
had.
sound.
It had a whole
Yep.
different thing.
It's
that they-
depending on what you're looking for.
what they aggregated over there was a little different than
See,
what
that's
we did.
how you know.
Right.
Is when you know what company to go to for what you're looking for.
Right. He
Because
had-
it is very different.
He had Woody and Mike over there, and I didn't have anybody that did exactly what they did.
Nope.
They did something unique. I mean, you had a bunch of them. That's one, Tony Hazelman did his thing over here, and his was different than everybody else's. We're picking him. Jimmy Stewart, I don't care who you pick, Donnie Lowry, any of them. They did something that different than those guys did, and it was a true brand. It was different.
I mean, we also, over at Hori Pro, we had John Ramey who wrote "Man Holding On to a Woman
Sure.
Letting Go."
Ramey, yeah.
And Ramey was a great, is still a great writer.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the artist did a bad thing the day before they were going to release that song. He was in Texas, and
Oh, yeah.
you remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ramey, Ramey wrote great songs. Mike and Woody wrote great songs. Bobby Taylor, Doug Gill. I could go on and on about all the writers that were there that were so unbelievably great. But it had a thing. It had, I don't know if it was a Beckham stamp of approval or Ronnie's stamp of approval, but we had a sound there. Mm-hmm. When I was at 1010, we had a sound there that was very different.
You talk about John Ramey because he's such a good friend of yours and mine
right.
both. So
Well, you signed him later, didn't you?
later, yeah. But John Ramey, this is a funny story. I'd been at Capitol Records back when it was in the McFadden building over there. Remember that? When Larry had it? And I walked out to my car. I'd been over there playing songs from Marie Osmond. I'll never forget this. And I walked out, and these two women jump out of I think it was like a Cadillac, and they kind of had their hair up. So, and they were a little older than me. And one woman said, "Hey, are you in the music business?" And I went, "Is it fanfare already?" And
Is it already?
And I mean, that's what I thought at first. And I said, "Well, what do y'all need?" And one woman said, "My son was a college quarterback. He's gotten 3 DUIs. All he wants to do is write songs. Can I play you some of his songs?" And I said, "Follow me to my office." So they followed me over to the music mill, and they come up, and we had a cup of coffee. And it was John Ramey's mother. He'd been a star quarterback at SEMO, southeastern Missouri, and literally had gotten 3 DUIs because he was going out bars and playing music at night. He got kicked off the team, thrown out of school, and all he wanted to do was write songs. So that's how I first.
He was good at it too.
Yeah, he is. Well, anyway, so he ended up coming to town. I ended up not signing him. You guys signed him, but anyway, after he'd been here for a while, one day he called me and said, "Man, I want to meet Harold Shedd." And I said, "Okay, well, I think I can make that happen." Well, somehow I don't know why we didn't, but he told me somebody, it might have been you. I don't remember who it was over at Horry Pro. So I tell you what you do. Go down to Longhorn and when you at lunch, and when you first walk in, there's that big corner booth there.
Big corner round booth.
If you see a guy sitting there, kind of good-looking guy with kind of graying hair and 3 of the most beautiful blondes you ever saw in your life, that's him. He said,
You
so
found him.
He said, so I did, and I walked down, and I'll be damned if he wasn't right there. And he said, I walked over and introduced myself to him. He was nice to me, and I left.
Dude,
I always thought that was so funny.
I love John Ramey. I love his writing. It's really good.
Yep. Different world, man. Just different world. That's funny.
I wish it was like that again.
I do too.
Boy,
we had such good times.
We sure did, man.
I wish I could remember them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, that was funny.
I got to tell you how much it means to me to actually be here in this room with y'all.
Back at you.
Just, we all did a lot of great stuff. You did really, really great stuff, Harold. And
thank you.
To be a part of it is a big deal to me.
Yeah, man. Me too. It is.
It stresses me out a little bit because I'm like,
hey, it's a good deal.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm very proud to be here.
Yeah,
So.
I'm proud of you guys and for you guys.
Yeah,
I wish we would have made more music together.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's,
Well, you never know.
We're not done yet, right?
Nope. Anything. I'm going to go back out and put that thing away after.
Well, you might want to listen to it again.
We'll probably get it cut again.
Yeah, I doubt that, but it was.
How many years ago was that?
Of it if you don't have it.
Okay,
that would have been 1997, 98?
Shit, no, it was for that because I was still.
I probably have the original demo.
You probably do.
There's only
95.
It's on a CD, but there are only 2 songs on it.
Yep. Butchie.
See, that is exactly what it's about right there. He remembers the song, what format it's on, how many songs are on that format, that from a song from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you know that you love what you do. Because I do the same thing. I mean, I have DATs, I have cassettes. I mean, I go all the way back, and I remember getting the first O'Kane's album before it came out. Jamie and Karen,
man,
and I've still got the cassette of it.
Oh yeah,
and just
the
sitting there going,
O'Kanes.
"Holy
Wow.
crap, this is unbelievable."
Oh yeah.
And we had several number ones off of that.
Yep.
But that's how you know you love what you do, when you can go back 30 years, over 1 million songs that you've listened to in your entire life, and you remember 2 songs on a CD.
Or every radio station.
From
call
1995. Yeah,
Yep.
right?
sign, and across the country.
Yeah. It's not the hits all the time. Sometimes it's just a song that hits you in the head.
We were talking about Mark McGuinn earlier.
Yeah.
Why on Mrs. Stephen Rudy does it start with play ball?
That's his wife, Stacy. His wife, Stacy, did that. She went, play ball. And I don't know why they did that. I think they were just drunk.
Good. Yeah.
But
Probably
you
another
remember
way
that?
of saying, here we go.
Yeah. Play ball. That's Stacy. Yeah, she's still, I see her from time to time still.
We left that on the record.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember it. I always wondered why it happened.
I think it
And
was
people ask the same thing you did.
I think it's like 1,
Why'd
2,
y'all
3,
leave-
go.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We had some man.
Damn, we had some good fun.
Well, it worked,
It really did work. Do you remember the number 1 party over at Cal
we got
Turner's
it to
house?
number 4.
It didn't go to number 1?
Oh, number 4. But
Well, we had a number one party.
Well, I know it. Well, you know, a top
Number one in
5
Germany.
song, they play like a number one.
Yeah, sure they do.
Yeah. And some top fives make a lot more
And
than
if
number
we'd
one.
have had another 175 grand, we'd have.
How did you not sign Mark as a writer? Because he was writing for Cal 4, Cal Turner's place. Why did you not sign him over at Music Mill?
I never tried to.
Didn't even think about it?
He was already signed, wasn't he?
Was that what it was? He already had a
Well,
deal?
he was signed. Cal 4 is a good company,
Yeah, it was a great company. They did a good job over there.
and I knew him. I knew his dad.
Daniel Hill was running it.
Yeah, I knew Daniel too.
Yep.
I didn't know Faith.
I knew his ex-wife. She used to be my receptionist
Did
before she got her deal when I worked
that
at Gary
right?
Morris Music. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really knew her.
Yeah. I knew Faith real well.
She's hard to miss.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. I mentioned Annie O'Brien earlier. Annie wrote a song. That same Annie O'Brien that I was telling you about wrote a song called. I can remember. I'll tell you the title in just a
She's
second.
got one. I don't think that's a title, but she had one that just really killed
Not the
me.
last sip of wine.
No,
Oh, that's the one Faith wanted so bad. Love's been an enemy again. Love makes Miranda cry. Is that it, Miranda?
no.
Well, Miranda's song is about a prostitute that's also a drug addict. So
Perfect.
But this song, I mean, if you're not laying the floor crying when you're done, and so Faith Hill, when she was making her first record, and think about that, Wild One. That's what was on that
Yeah.
record. I just signed Annie O'Brien. I held these songs, and I played that song, and Faith just lost it. I mean, just lost it. I'm cutting that song. This is like, what year would you say? 90, maybe? When was Faith Hill?
Yeah.
Early. So anyway,
But
a few
91.
years goes by, and she's going to make
91.
another record. She's a big star now. She calls me for that song. And I get it over to her. I'm going to cut this song. Doesn't happen. For years. Every 2 or 3 years she'd call me. So probably, I'm going to say 10 years ago, she reached out to me through that girl that works for her. Mandy, is that her name? I think, or something. I can't remember. Said, man, the Faith wanted to know if you could get her that song again. I mean, this is just hadn't been that long ago. I mean, it's a great song. So I reached out to Universal, see if I could get a copy of it, try for Annie. I mean, we're not going to make anything on it, but that's okay.
Yep. That's what you do.
Yeah, so I reached out, and they couldn't find it. And finally, I went back. There's more of that going on, about when I try to get copies for people. Anyway, and I finally found the copy and got to them. But if I have a few regrets on things that I go, man, we missed that one. Annie O'Brien, some of those songs, I'm trying to think of one you might be thinking about. Some of those songs were just incredible.
I remember Annie. She was
she
had a lot going on.
I didn't know.
They were good. She was a good writer.
Yeah. It was different, real different.
She's got. I know the one you're talking about, but there's one that you haven't named yet.
I'll think of it in a second. I'm trying to remember all of them.
no.
Man, but I got to tell you, I think about that stuff. I didn't know. Here's what I did. And, I think, and again, I'm not knocking today. Cause I think they do some things. But we would aim at trying to get a hit, but we aimed at great first.
Great first.
And look at who's sitting next to me here. It was never like
He hit great a
It's
lot.
like the thing I said on one of our last ones. I said, "You think you get that on the radio? I don't give a shit. Do you love it?"
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Do you love it was the most important
Yep.
thing. Do you love it? And if I can have one big thing where I say, man, I know I had one that didn't work was Annie. Oh my God.
If I had a song that I loved a whole lot and I played it for somebody and they didn't flip out over it as much as I did, I just keep hitting play again. You're going to like this by the time I get done hitting play. I'm going to play it over and over and over again. You sit there and go, how can you not love this?
Yeah.
And it shows you how individual we all are.
Yeah.
Which brings together a great situation.
Yeah. But as you say that, that's the difference. That was the business.
Yep.
Today, it's over here. They do some of it, but it doesn't work that way anymore. Today, again, that was the key. An artist got to hear all the greatest songs, and they all couldn't wait to do it. They got to hear the greatest songs in the world. Today, it's less of that, and it's more of it's a volume game now. And like Warner Chappell's a great example. I don't know how many, but I bet you they got 1,000 writers signed over there, and I don't think I'm that far off.
I don't
really
think you are either.
They do these little deals, but the way they sign a writer is How are your streaming numbers on your
That's
independent
exactly
stuff?
right.
Who are you writing with? And then we're going to put, the
beatbox guy.
You with these other 5 guys. And you look now, and there's hardly ever less than 4 or 5 writers on a song.
Shoot, are you kidding me? There's 6 or 8.
Sometimes, a lot of times there is.
Because everybody gets a piece.
Right. And so it's all about writing 3 songs a day with 10 different people. And
But you don't know.
And you walk out with a demo somebody made while you were sitting there doing programming stuff, and it's just I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just different.
Well, Bob Beckham used to say, he hated it. He'd go, I signed, 8 writers. They're the best writers in town.
Right.
You're not going to co-write with anybody else. Write together.
Right.
Because
Right.
you're the best.
Right.
And when we started, introducing co-writes, it did not go over well. He just didn't like it. He's like, what? Why would I have them do? So he would give away the publishing to every other song. If it was a co-writer outside of the company, they could have the writing,
That's
have
crazy.
the publishing on one song. We'll take all of it on the next song.
That's
But
crazy.
he did not enjoy the co-writing situation.
Yeah.
But and even then, there were usually 2. Sometimes
Yeah.
3,
Oh,
sometimes
3.
3, but hardly ever. Tony, most of
If
Tony's
it was
hits-
3, it would be all within the company.
yeah, but most of Tony's hits he wrote by himself.
Yeah.
It was a lot of single writing. Most of that KT stuff, a lot of it was by herself.
Well, Mike Reed, I think Mike Reed was one of those that
Yep, he
wrote a
was.
lot by himself.
Yeah, he did.
What a
Yep.
great writer he was.
Yep,
Yeah, Mike.
And
was-
still is, I suppose. But
and I'll still
Dean Dillon.
Dean Dillon.
Dean
I was
Dillon,
about
there
to
you
say
go.
The same thing.
same thing, and I think that I still believe that the more people involved, the more tepid the song has to be. It has to be.
Yeah.
It's science.
Yeah.
It's got to be, and it's just a different world.
It's a whole different
The more
world.
what? Russ?
The more tepid it's got to be, the more vanilla it's got to be. Because of all 4 of us, if you and I have to agree on something, then we'll figure it out. If there's 3 of us, it's a little harder. Got to get more in the center and agree.
I'll tell you what.
Well, from an A&R standpoint, that's true because when I was leaving the industry, nobody did what I did.
right?
They had 5 people to do that.
to do what you did, yeah.
And you take that stuff and you run it through 5 other people, it's gonna dilute it.
Absolutely.
Yep,
They're not
absolutely.
gonna like all of it.
Yep.
But I think that was the economics of the whole situation. And I think, everybody talks about the Garth Brooks wave, that, threw all the money into the industry, which gave you the ability to hire 5 people to have an opinion, and sign 10 acts that were all the same and see which one popped to the top,
Really, you.
But
first
or
of
the
all,
Alabama wave.
it's almost impossible to get 5 people to
Agree
agree
on
on
anything.
any
Absolutely.
one thing.
That's exactly,
exactly right.
The point. That's the point. Yeah.
No, I always like the way you or Stegall did it, which was basically you listen and bring it to me. If I'm Keith, he's like, you go listen and bring it to me. There weren't 5 other people to make that decision. It was
Sure.
I go listen to the songs, I find the ones I like, and I play them for him, and then he plays them for Alan,
Right.
or whoever,
Yeah.
the Lila McCann, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, if I didn't like it, Russ or Larry or Chuck
yeah,
or Butch or whoever was involved, if nobody liked it, you were
it ain't gonna happen.
pissing in the wind anyway,
It's
Yeah,
like
and it
Jerry
wasn't-
Weintraub when one of his friends just owned a hardware store. So Jerry takes him to see an act he's looking at, and he says, "What do you think?" And the guy that owned the hardware store says, "I don't really care for it, anything." And he said, "Well, you're wrong. I'm signing him."
Yeah.
It was John Denver.
Yeah, oops.
So that shows you that 2 opinions
That's-
are not better than
yeah.
one
Yeah.
that knows what they're listening to.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law
Absolutely.
played guitar for John Denver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Pete Uttlinger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew that. And the other thing about that is you talk about doing that job with Keith and me doing it with Harold and
Yeah.
all of us.
You know.
It wasn't it just because I love it didn't mean he was going to love it.
Exactly.
And just because he would play me stuff and didn't mean I was going to love it.
And you don't listen to stuff thinking that they're going to like it.
No.
You know, you took stuff because you loved it, and it kind of made you who you are.
Sure.
You know, Keith would know that I'm going to bring him stuff like this. It's going to be probably serious. You know, it's probably going to, you know, be in a ballad situation. You know, I could hit some up tempos, but what I really love is this. And Keith knew that's why he hired me.
Sure,
you know,
because he let you find. You know, and at the same time, I remember Harold. When we were talking about his radio one day, and he was telling me when he used to do DJ, and you'll remember this. You know that people would call in to request songs, and he'd say, I want to know why you like that," which I always thought was interesting. Tell me why you like that song,
right?
You know, and I
And
think,
they'll tell you.
Yeah.
but I think that gave, and again, I told you that earlier. I always
There's a
thought
story
that gave you a good perspective on things. You know, that I didn't have
Well,
because
I
I didn't
wanted
do
to
that.
know that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know for what reason necessarily, but
But it also
why do you
would
like
be,
that? You know.
Yeah.
It'd be also great for a songwriter, you know, to hear that conversation. Why do you like that?
Yeah.
Because it sends you in a direction. You go, well, this is what people like.
Yeah.
I'm going to write to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's real good. A good idea.
You know,
Jason,
Yes, sir.
thanks for doing this with us.
I'm so glad to be here.
used to be a guy. He'd call me every morning at 6 o'clock. I did the early. She always works in the morning, and he was the minister of music at a church, and I knew him and knew about that. And every morning, well, maybe not 5 mornings in a row, but 3 mornings out of a week, every other morning, he would call me and want to hear Jack Green sing "There Goes My Everything."
Oh, yeah.
Minister of music at a church, and this song about they're splitting up, you know, and all that. And I said, why do you like that song? And he said, well, it's a negative song, but he said, you know, that's real life. You know, just like that.
That's the way it happens.
And it is, you know. So that was a good answer.
Yeah.
Country music is real life.
Yeah.
You know?
It is real. It is real life.
Maybe it is what Harlan
Yep.
said, 3 chords and the truth.
Yeah,
You know,
it might be, you know.
it maybe that's it.
I mean, Harley Allen did the
And
same
we make
thing.
a
He
little
was-
more out of it sometime, but maybe basically that's
It
what
just
it
comes
is.
down to this is what it is.
There Goes My Everything is pretty simple, really,
Yep.
if you analyze it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
But it sold millions of records. A lot of people liked it.
Yep. And before we get off that, I want to say one more thing
What?
that we said the other day about the difference today too. As we were mentioning earlier, and you were talking about the economics with Garth and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I never thought about this till the other day where Sharon Bryan said, when we talked about 3 million records, and he said, don't forget, back in those days, that was 30 million gross. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen today.
Nope.
Totally different world.
Totally
so
different
The economics are so different. But anyway,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you get 1 million streams now, you get $1,200.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Literally, if you're lucky.
It's hard to
Yeah,
run a
they-
tour on that.
They have some funny bookkeeping,
Yep.
It's like a
but
movie
they've
business.
always had that.
Yep. But 100 million streams, you get 100 million streams, you're getting somewhere between $3,000 and $4,500 for the master.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
you know, you add it up, that's, you know, what, 300 or 400 grand for 100 million streams.
Well, that's yeah.
That's the master side. I mean, the publishing side's somewhere between, you know, they say between $1,000 and $1,300 for the publishing for that million.
Yep.
Well, again, add that up. You know, I got to tell you that you know those performance checks were hard to lift up off the table. You know, from BMI in the day. So it's like, you know, different deal.
Now it's a master's
and
deal.
economics, I think, has helped
Boy.
change all that stuff too.
Wasn't the number 1 income producer for BMI Toby Keith?
Probably was.
And number 2, Shania Twain.
Yeah.
Probably.
I think now I could be wrong.
I think
but-
that's I think that's right.
I don't know. Yeah, probably for a couple of years or so.
Yeah.
Whose boots have your bed? Oh, never mind. It didn't work.
Yep.
From 2019, 2020, and 2021, they were 1 and 2.
Wow.
And you
Huge.
signed both.
Yeah.
Well, Harold, I'm going to say this.
I should have had somebody else do my contract.
I'm going to say this, Harold.
What?
When I grow up, I do want to be you.
I want you to be a lawyer.
I'll work on that.
Contract lawyer.
Yeah,
Contract lawyer. Get me a better deal, Jason.
All right,
You know
Jason,
the-
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Looking quickly, looking back, you were talking about things that helped me make records based on what I had. And another thing that was really educational in a sense, in it that it made you more aware about who the writer and the publisher and the artist. Before computers, before the 80s, really,
Yep.
early 80s, I worked at radio and I worked in radio for, I think, 14 years. And every record every station I ever worked at, I was in charge of the music. You got me? Yeah. I was the PD. I had that.
Right.
So, but responsibility went with that because BMI and ASCAP and CSAC, while they had a monitoring system, they didn't write down the song, the writer and the publisher, the producer, the label,
Right.
the artist.
The PRO.
Before computers, he wrote all of that down.
Yep.
So many, I think the max was 3 months a year for each company. So anything that was played in that 12-month period, you really knew about it, you know, because you learned and you remembered who wrote it, who published it, who the artist was, who the co-writer was, and what label it was on. Sometimes how long it was, even, because you put all of this information down personally, you know.
Yeah.
So that was really a great lesson in country music.
Absolutely. You got to know it pretty intimately because
Yeah.
you were doing all of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Nashville.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Harold.
Yeah, buddy.
Glad
Thank
to be
you, Wade.
here. Thank you, Wade.
Y'all ready to hop on the horse?
Who did we lose? Brian?
He's still
He's
here.
around somewhere.
Yeah. Y'all ready to get on the horse
Where?
and ride?
Get on your horses and ride.
That does it for this episode of Behind the Shed. Thank you for joining us. Behind the Shed podcast was created by Wade Smith, produced by Russ Zavitson and Wade Smith, recorded at Ace Haggerty's podcast house in Nashville, Tennessee. Camera, audio, video, and editing by Zach Day and Jack Youngblood. Music written and composed by Russ Zavitson. Today's guests were Jason Morse, Russ Zavitson, Wade Smith, and Harold Shedd. You can contact the show via email at behindtheshed@gmail.com or visit us on Facebook and Instagram at Behind the Shed. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform and also on our YouTube page. If you would like to support this podcast, please visit patreon.com/behindtheshed. Have a great day and share some stories. Tune in next week as we go Behind the Shed. If you're in the market for a new or pre-owned vehicle, try Pop Chevrolet. Pop Chevrolet will get you the best price guaranteed. Visit popchevy.com. That's POPS Chevy.com. This episode is brought to you by Paintsville Tourism. Paintsville is located in eastern Kentucky in the heart of the US 23 Country Music Highway. Visit PaintsvilleTourism.com. That's PaintsvilleTourism.com. Come see why Paintsville is eastern Kentucky's city of note. This episode is brought to you by Wild Bill's Fireworks. At Wild Bill's, they will help you start and maintain a successful fireworks business. Whether you're starting a retail store, a seasonal tent, or a part-time venture, Wild Bill's is your one-stop wholesale fireworks supplier. Their team can help you pick inventory. They offer business training, ongoing support to make sure you stay profitable no matter the size of your business. Call or text for more information. Just ask for Bill at 606-367-5569. That's 606-367-5569. Or visit wildbillsfireworks.com and make sure you ask about their financing plan.